this is just
Just
for him to take minutes.
thank you. Thank you to everybody that agrees. Appreciate it.
So Mindy, did you want me to give the brief Devar Torah before John and Brett
Yes,
present?
I think you can do that. I think that's okay.
Okay, so I could start?
Mhm.
Okay. Good to see everybody, and I want to wish everybody a speedy recovery if they're healing or if their family members are healing. I think we're all healing in some way. So I wish well to everyone. When I saw that no one had signed up to do the Devar Torah for today, a few hours ago, I emailed Mindy and said, I'll give the Devar Torah. So it's what I love to do. So you never know where you're going to get your inspiration from. Last night, my partner in crime, my son, and I were watching the election results coming in, and he said, let's take a break and watch what we usually do. So we've been watching Abbott Elementary. I don't know if anybody watches that. I think it's on HBO Max now, and it's on TV. I don't know. I'm always a little bit behind what people watch. And it's also mindless. It's kind of like The Office, but it's set in a school. And you never know what you might learn from it. And there's no violence and no bad language. So it's a good thing to watch with a 16-year-old. Not that he doesn't know that. So last night's was a great lesson. I'll just give you a brief synopsis of the episode. Janine, who's a teacher who's always like completely perky, she wants her kids to do this egg drop experiment. They're too young to do it, and they completely fail. And there's this other guy, Gregory, who is very blunt at times. He needs to be a little more blunt to Janine. But he said to her, sometimes you fail. You have to fail sometimes because that's science. Sometimes it doesn't always go the way you expect things to go. And he was just so blunt about it that and she is always like over positive, and he's just like, sometimes you have to fail and things don't happen the way you think they're going to happen. So I was thinking about how life is that way. No matter what the results were going to be today, one side was going to be happy and see it as a success. The other side would see the failure, and vice versa. Whoever was successful with both ways, someone was going to be upset, someone was going to be happy. They're always winners or losers. You learn a lot from failing, and if you don't try, then you never know. So I was thinking about the trials and tribulations in the Torah. Next week's Torah portion is one of my favorite. The story of the trials of Abraham that God gives him, and Akedat Yitzchak, the near sacrifice of Isaac. And did he successfully fulfill that trial by going and about to sacrifice his son? Or was the trial really supposed to be the way that Abraham was arguing with God about the people of Sodom and saying, no, they're righteous people? Why didn't Abraham argue with God at that point? Sometimes we have to evaluate the situation, that sometimes we're not sure how the trial is supposed to go. Just the way Abraham didn't know, should I argue with God at this point, or should I do what God wants us to do at this moment? But somehow we continue reading that story at least twice a year. And it's probably one of the most painful stories in the Torah, which I think across religions, people know about it. It's in the book of Genesis. But you have to look at it and have a perspective on it. It depends on your perspective. If your perspective of the story was, wow, look at Abraham, he would do anything God says, or look at Abraham, he wanted this child for so long and he was ready to sacrifice him. So what makes the story so great is that there's so many perspectives to look at it. So too with life. There are many different perspectives. You could be like this teacher on Abbott Elementary, Janine, who's always positive about everything and has to be reminded sometimes we have to fail. And so too, today, there are many different perspectives on what's going on, but we have to remember to be respectful, to listen to each other, and realize that we're all coming from different perspectives. But at the same time, because we're coming from different perspectives and we're all here together, we're in community together. So I pray that we can continue having that kavod, that respect for each other, even when we come from different perspectives and might see the glass half full or half empty. But I'm praying that we can see it full at some point for all of our lives. Thank you, Mindy.
Thank you, Rabbi. So thank you all for being on. And let me just say, officially, Pam, welcome to the committee, now that it's all official. And we're going to turn it over to Rita and John for the investment report.
You ready, Rita?
Am I ready? You better be ready.
John, you should be able to share.
Yes, I'm going to. Just gonna pull this up
So
here.
for everybody, Pamela, you're new, so I don't know if you know John Badenham,
Yes, yes,
Brett.
Hi, Pamela.
yes. I
Welcome to
remember
the
from our
committee.
last, meeting. Thank you, thank you.
And do you know Brett? Brett works with John.
Yeah, Brett and I, Pam, have been working, or do you want to prefer Pamela or Pam?
Pam,
Okay. Brett and I have been working together almost 20 years. And
Oh, wow.
so
All
I started working with his dad back in 2006. And we worked on a very large institutional client, and we just got along really well. And we've been, Brett's dad retired 5 years ago now, after being in the business 51 years. Brett started with the firm right out of high school, practically, and his father got him registered and got him into various training programs. He and I, for example, have a CPWA. We went to the University of Chicago for that, and it's a Certified Private Wealth Advisor designation where you study for a year and you go out to Chicago for 7 or 8 days. I forget what, it was 10 years ago, I guess we did this. And it involved a great deal of planning and analysis, and it's very different from a certified financial planner's designation, which is also quite good. So it really, we try to be up on the latest important elements that are effective to our industry, to our jobs, and for our clients. And it's been a great working relationship. And, you know, Brett was promoted last year to managing director, which is a big deal. He's also a family wealth director, which involves extensive study program, which there's an 8-year waiting list to get into it. And he was able to get through that. So our team is pretty well versed, and we're always trying to be better educated in terms of what types of things that we can help clients with. So hopefully that'll give you some, you know, the elevator thumbnail sketch of as to what we are. Okay.
thank you.
All right. Now, what I'm going to do is I kind of broke things down a little differently, though I did it the last meeting in September, where we begin at page 3 of the report. Now, can everybody see this as I'm moving it around?
Yep.
Okay.
Yes.
So on page 3 of the report, it gives you all the accounts and the relationship that Women's League has with Morgan Stanley. And Pam, to give you some idea, I've been working with Women's League since about 1996. And so we've gone through a lot of things over the years, from the sale of the building in New York to how to invest this money and how to grow it and how to support the organization in any fashion possible from an investment standpoint. So we've got a variety of accounts here. This large one here is what I call the primary account, which is the largest, with approximately 5.4 million in it. Then we have the Mitzvah Torah that's valued about 185,000. And we've got the Future Fund, which has got 81,000 in it. We have the Convention Fund, Reserve Fund, which has about 35,000 in it. And then this final account, which we've had for a very long time, is just a special account with about 20,000 in it. These accounts that are, with the exception of Mitzvah Torah, the other 3 accounts are all in Federated Money Market, which earn right now about 4.7% yield. Okay. And if anybody has any questions, just interrupt me and say I have a question, okay? I'm not stuck on protocol, okay? Then if I shift to page 4, this is the relationship in the aggregate showing how we're invested on here in this upper right, which we're about 39.2% stocks or equities. And a lot of it has to do with appreciation. Even though our policy guideline puts us around that max level of equities, okay, we've gotten there because of growth. And it would not be prudent to put Women's League at a disadvantage by saying, all right, let's take profits and reduce it and put it more into the fixed income side, which is here, for example, because we'd be giving up income. And that's really our primary objective, is income, preservation of wealth, okay, over the long run. And we've been able to do that for the better part of 20 some odd years. The upper left-hand quadrant here, it shows that we, for the fiscal year, which is June 30 of 23 through June 30 of 24, it grew by about 8.5%, which is approximately 418,000 of growth, okay? There was withdrawals of 100,000 during that period of time, and that was, the Women's League used that for whatever purposes for which they needed that cash for. If we then look here a little bit to the left of that column, this is the performance since June 30 of 24 through November the 4th, and we're up almost 7% or $367,000 year to date. If we then drop to the right-hand quadrant, what we have here is our largest position, which is in the primary account, and that's 700,000 in the Federated Money Market, and it's been in there for quite a while, given the fact that it was paying 5.25% until the Fed reduced rates in September by 0.5%. So now the yield on the Federated as of today is 4.77%, which is still pretty acceptable given the, bank savings accounts and traditional money markets, which are still paying pretty much nothing. In addition to the money market, here are the larger positions, the top 10 positions in the portfolio. And what I'll do is this is a general description, but let me break it down by account, if I may. So I'm going to move to page 9. Let me make sure I'm right on this. I'm already, I removed the aggregate report. I'm sorry. This is the primary account up here. See this account number? I apologize. I, for some reason, thought it was all combined. So we've got a number of stocks in here, and our original thrust in owning these stocks was the Dow 10, which is where we invested in 10 highest yielding stocks in the Dow Jones Industrial Average and rebalance every January, and only once a year. So what that means is when the price of a stock goes up, its yield goes down, and that's a good thing. But what we do is we replace it, we sell it and replace it with one that's got a higher yield. And that's a thing that's been ongoing for many years now. And so the performance has been quite good, but each of these stocks pay in excess of 2.5–3% yield, which is very acceptable. Plus you have a growth component in the portfolio. When we first began working with Women's League, all the money was in fixed income. And my concern was that we didn't have a lot of growth. And so we gradually added or introduced growth to the portfolio over the years, but we did it on a very gradual basis. I'm going to go to page 9 of the report, if you don't mind. But before I do that, does anyone have any questions? Okay. Let me go to page 9 here. Here's page 9. So what this shows, again, this is just the primary account, okay? Shows that we started the year, or back in June of 2003 with 3.2 million. Over that history, we've withdrawn 1.7 million. It's grown by 3.9. So that gets us to our $5,457,000 value. So we've been annualizing net of anything 4.6% year in, year out for the entire period. Okay. If we see how we've done over the last 3 years, it's 3.6%. For the investment earnings, were about 542,000. There was 400,000 that was removed during that 3-year period of time. Okay, and we also had in that span 2022, which is a terrible year for both stocks and bonds in the stock market, which was not a productive year. So that's why you see that only a 3.6% return. Then I have over the last 5 years, I guess I put the column out of order, so forgive me, but you still get the same idea. You know, we started with 4.9. There was 475,000 withdrawn out of the account over the 5-year period of time. Over 5 years, it's grown by almost $1 million to get us to the 5.4. So that gives you kind of a sense as to how it's done over the last 5 years. So we've looked at it, you know, inception, the last 3 years, the last 5 years, for example. Then we look at just the fiscal year for June of 30 of 22 to 23, and we were up about 95,000 over that period of time. And then since, oh, I found an error here. Let me fix that if I can. I thought I corrected that. Because I have here the June 30, 23, and that's not correct. Let me just fix that real quick, okay? So I'm gonna go into my folders here for a minute. So does anybody have any questions while I'm trying to correct my mistake? Okay, just bear with me a minute. Sorry, Rita, I thought I corrected it. I caught it yesterday.
Don't worry, no worries.
I was in such a hurry to get it out that I made a mistake.
Okay.
There it is. Come on. All right, we had a major system problem this morning, and it caused a lot of difficulties for us, and we've been trying to correct it ever since. So I'm going to stop sharing for just a second, okay? And I'm going to go into performance. And here, let me just make sure I've got this right. Okay, so I'm going to share the screen. And here we are. Okay, can everybody see this now?
Yes.
Okay, so the thinking is here, what I was really trying to do is over the last 12 months from November 23rd of November 30th, 23 to 24, we're up 14%, which is 719,000, okay? Year to date, we're up 540,000 or 10.53%. So, and that's now looking at today because the market's up 1,300 points, the Dow, because of the election, and people seem to know who's going to end up in the White House. And so the market it shows up 1,400 points actually right now, which is huge today. So really we're doing pretty well, okay? Does anybody have any questions?
John, would you do one thing? Would you just hit the show little bar and put in the income number so they can see that?
When
So
you say,
up top, it says show 0 selected.
hold on. Show 0 selected, you're missing, I don't understand.
So in fact, would you stop sharing? I'll put it up.
Okay,
It's all right with everybody. I just want to be able to point out, because part of the goal, as I've understood it, is we want to make sure we're staying within income limitations. Can everyone see my screen right here?
Yes.
So all I simply did is that up here show, I said include the income as part of the number. So it breaks out the $700,000 in the last 12 months. And where did it come from? 258 came from interest and dividends, of which in the last 12 months, you've issued out money for $250,000. So all the spending can be accounted for from the income side of the world. The rest of it came from actual appreciation, whether it's stock or bonds, whatever it is that went up in value, right? We know we were up $700,000, 14% in the last 12 months time, November to today, or yesterday's close. But a portion of it was interest and dividends, of which you spent. So you're right on track for, we want to generate sufficient income to meet our needs. We're right on track with $8,000 room to spare. The rest of it came because stock prices went up, bond prices maybe appreciated, preferreds and such. Just want to be able to show that so far, we're in good shape as far as overall spending, and you can go look over longer periods of time and see some similar things. The stock market has not always been our friend, certainly this year, and in the last 12 months they have been. Is that at all helpful to everybody, just to make sure that you know you're inside
Yeah,
of
yeah.
the income guidelines?
So this may be a stupid question, but if the stock market shifts after this tremendous gain and starts to go downward, God forbid, what are our options at
Well,
that
let's do
point?
this then. I'm gonna stay sharing screen if that's okay with everybody. And it's in John's report, but remember this piece about the pie chart you saw before.
Right,
Again, this is only looking at the large account. But let's quantify. 39% of the large account is stock. If we put that in a dollar value, as of yesterday, it was $2.15 million is stock.
Right.
Now, out of the $2.15 million in stock, $1.9 million is inside the US. Some is global. Global, by the way, is the Global Utilities ETF. Most of that is US anyway. But on the US side, about $1.2 million is value companies. They are typically ones that pay us dividends and income sort. $271,000 is the growth side. Admittedly, the growth side's been the better place with technology and things of that nature that have really had a heck of a last couple of years. But Rita, I think it was you who asked the question, to give you perspective, the stock market has meltdowns periodically. We
Right.
saw about an 8% drop from a peak to a bottom earlier this year. It's obviously recovered and then some, but that was an 8% drop on, let's say, $2 million, right? That's $170,000 when you really think about that number. That is normal. What we've seen over the last 30 years as average volatility. Certainly every once in a while, there's a 2022 where the stock market drops 25%. There's a 2020 where the stock market drops a third. But so far, most of the recoveries in my 25 years, John's 30-something years in this industry, most recoveries happen within a relatively short period of time, a year or something like that. Every once in a while, we have an 2008 that took almost 3 years to get back to all-time highs.
right.
Right. So we have to deal with it if it happens, if we're going to choose to be here, but it's given us obviously benefits over time. But to the goal of the program, if we need about $250,000 and we're generating about $250,000 in income, if the stock prices are this high or this high, it's still going to generate the cash flow and meet the needs. The question is, do we want to deal with volatility? So if we have a gigantic meltdown, there's $2 million in change here that is stock oriented. And do you want to have it or not? It represents 39% of this account, a little bit less of the overall. That is probably the majority of any of the actual stock exposure. Am I helping kind of frame it for you, Rita?
Sort of. Yeah,
Well, you know, Rita, since 2003, if I look at the performance of every year, we've only had 3 down years. And the
Right.
worst was in 2022, we were down 8.5%. Okay?
Yeah.
We've been on the positive side of the fence for the majority of the time. Okay? The reason that we have done well is because we've basically stuck to our knitting. We've not really deviated much from any of the initial investment
know.
strategy. Okay?
yes,
In addition, we've got such a strong cash position that we can weather pretty much any volatility in the market. Today, for example, your stocks are up $36,000 just today. Okay. So, you know, we've got a good inflation fighter in here in having stock exposure, which is what we needed to do because of, you know, inflation just kills the buying power of a dollar. And if you're a fixed income, all in fixed income, your spending gets weaker as inflation increases. So the idea is to have something that'll counterbalance that, and that's why we have stock market exposure, okay?
Right.
So, you know, it's what's going to happen is the Fed tomorrow is going to announce its plans going forward, whether they're going to reduce rates, keep rates the same. Speculation is that they could drop another 25 basis points or 1/4%. And if they do that, that will have an impact on the Fed rate, though it won't be immediate, but it'll take it down to about 4.5%, is a guess on my part. Probably what we'll need to do at some point is look for some higher yielding types of investments to replace that income that we're eventually going to lose. But we should do that preemptively, not wait for it all to happen. But that's another conversation. Okay.
Yes, yes.
Okay. So did we
Got it.
answer your question? Okay, Rita?
Yes, yes, thank you.
Sure.
Okay.
All right, I'm gonna stop sharing so that John, you can go back to what you need.
Yeah. I mean, what I'm going to have to do is update my report and send it out to everybody because the dates are wrong in terms of that. But I can give you real time, which is more important anyway. So the one thing that I'm going to share with all of you is that let me just share the screen here. Okay, so share, here we go. So what we have here is, can everyone see this screen okay? Can everyone see this?
Yes.
Okay. We're projecting over the next 12 months, 261,000 of income. So the yield right there is about a 4.79, and that's been pretty much the yield for quite a while. Okay. What we have earned, let me just get into here. And if I go to, I got to do this from 6:30. 07 rather, 2024. So what we're looking at is these are all the positions that paid since June, the end of beginning of July. Okay, and you have a June 30 fiscal year. So we've pulled in about $88,709.56 of income, and that's through, to give you an idea, that's through November the 5th. Okay, so still we're pretty much on target to get that income figure. Now, does anybody have any questions about that? Does anybody have any questions about the primary account? Okay, because these are your positions, and if we look down here towards the bottom, where is it? My federated. Let me just do this real quick. Sorry if I'm moving around too quick. I'm just trying to be thoughtful in terms of everybody's time. So here's your 720,000 in the federated, okay? And then these are all your bonds, okay, which are all going to be in the report. But that's to give you an idea of how strong a presence that we have there. In addition, if I look at how much you have in actual cash, right now it's 35,000 is in cash, and that's the accumulation of all these dividends that are being collected. Okay, and then down here, for example, is you got $2,977.75, which is just the reinvestment of the interest from the federated, and that's payable at the end of each month. So that's what you're getting by way of income monthly. Okay. So if no one has any questions about the primary account, I'd like to move to Mitzvah Torah. Is that okay, Rita?
Yes,
Okay,
Yes.
thanks. All right, let me go to Mitzvah Torah. So, all right, so let me go to my allocation. So right now we've got about 54% in cash. Equities, we show about 24%, and then in fixed income and prefers 21%. So, and that's been, let me see here. That's not what I want, sorry. So basically what we have is, this is the iShares dividend ETF, which is an equity, but it pays a dividend. We've got Southern Company bond in here. We've got the Warner Brothers, which was a spinoff of AT&T. And then, of course, we got the AT&T. So
What page are you on? Sorry.
that will be on page, let me just get my report here. Okay, we pull it up. Whoop, wrong one.
I think it
apologize.
might be different page numbers now.
It is on my screen, but on the report itself, it's not. So let me just get to the darn thing. What I do it, there it is. Let me just, go here. Because right now, Ms. Fator, we're looking at pages 10, 25, and 31. Those are the.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep. Thank you.
So, yep. So, excuse me, get to that. Okay, so if I go to my page 5, which is,
John, your screen share is on the actual, our system, not the report they
I
have.
know, I want it there because I had a date error and I just want to give them the more accurate numbers in terms of the performance. So the performance here, we've also had Mitzvah since June of 2003. So over in the far right column, for example, I hope everyone can see it. Let me know if you can. You know, we started 130,000. We took out about 89 over the period. So that's, 21 years, a long time. It's grown by 146,000. So that gets us to our 186. If I look at where we are year to date, we're up about 9% for $15,000, and that'll get us to our 186. If we look at where we are, the trailing 12 months, we're up 11%. So, again, this account has a very specific purpose. We have a healthy amount in cash here, 90,000 in the Federated, okay? And we've got some accumulation of dividends, so that gives us our, our 10,000, but that's there in case you guys need it for some purpose. I know there's been.
John, can I interrupt you? Could you go back to that previous slide and do the show where it breaks down the interest earned versus the
Yes. I know what you mean.
accelerated investments? Because I want to make sure we haven't divvied into our principal balance.
Okay, so,
Your performance, John.
and then I gotta do. Okay, so what we have here is if we look year to date, total income is about $7,200 and the appreciation is about $8,200.
So year to date, it's earned negative 24. Am I looking at the right column?
Year to date column where John has the arrow says we started the year with $171,000. We're at 186. Nothing
No, I'm saying from inception.
from inception.
From inception, we've, let's see, total income receives 170,000. And for some reason, there's been you withdrawn 89,000, but there was been 24,000 of depreciation. It could be that you removed 24,000 of principal over that period of time.
So we have used the principal balance then.
That's
We
what.
started with 130. We're worth 186. We've generated $170,000 in income. You've taken out 89.
Okay,
You haven't taken out all the income from day one.
okay,
You haven't taken out any income so far this year or the last 12 months.
right.
To give you a little bit the perspective though, in the last 3-year column where that's the second, third to the right, you've taken out $22,000 in the last 3 years. Income alone was 20. So in the last 3 years, you lose a little more than the actual income generation. In the last 5 years, you took out 33. Income alone was 36. You did not use all the income from day one. You have not used all the income, but it's not every year. Some years you use a little bit more income than maybe what you use a little bit more than what got generated in just income. Has not been the case since 2003. Is that helpful?
Yep,
Okay,
thank you.
you're welcome.
Okay, so the income, we're looking at $8,133 is the projected income over the next 12 months. And if I look at the distributions, and again, I go to July of 2024 to now, we've received about $3,191.34 of income.
Since the beginning of this fiscal year.
Yeah, the fiscal year.
John, go back to the projected income for 1 second.
Projected income?
Yep,
Okay.
just the other picture with the month by month.
Right, hold on.
There you go. Just so everybody sees it, there's $101,000 of 180 is cash, money market. And John mentioned before, Federated Money Market, it's got a good yield, but it is subject to change. If the Federal Reserve lowers rates, then this is going to pay us something less. They can only project what they know today, the current rate over the next 12 months. So that $4,416 is subject to change if rates come down. And I just wanted to point it out because that's half of the overall income generation is coming from the cash, because cash is a little more than half the whole account.
Yeah, and you guys don't take money out of this very often. So, I mean, it's there, it's got a very specific purpose, and, you know, you guys have been quite careful about taking money from it. So I don't see any, need for us to be too aggressive here or change unless you all think something different. I mean, granted, interest rates, we're in an environment where they are trending down, okay? But they're not going to zero. And we're not going to see as the low rates that we experienced over the last 12 years, when the 10-year Treasury was at 1 3/4 from 2012 through January of 2022. We're not going to go back to those levels. So, you know, there's no hurried element to be concerned about here, but I am concerned because a year from now, rates will be lower than they are now. So that's something to think about, okay? Does anybody have any questions about Ms. Fatura? Okay. The other accounts where we have this is the future fund, okay, which is all in Federated Money Market, okay? And, you know, that's there and that's earning, let's see, income. That's earning 4.8%, as you can see. So that's about $3,985 a year that earns, okay? And again, that's just in the Federated Money Market. If I look,
I don't think we're seeing that, John.
oh, you know why? Because I forgot to share the screen.
Right,
Forgive me on that.
that's all right.
It was just a quiz to see if everybody was paying attention.
There you go.
Anyway, here we are. So if I go back to the balances here, this is again the future fund. It's $81,624.34. The projected income is going to be $3,985, and that's 4.88%. Okay. If I look at the income that is in fact received so far, it's about $1,567.07, and that again is in the Federated Money Market. Any questions about the future fund? Okay, then we have here, this is the convention account. So while I'm on the screen, it's earned about $784. The projected income is going to be $1,726. Again, it's 4.88%. And then the balances here, it shows the $35,355.80, and that's the value. Okay. And finally, we have the small, I guess, savings account, and that's also in the Federated. And the projected income here is $929. It shows 4.58%. That's because the money's been in there longer versus the other two accounts. And so far, we have received $321 since the beginning of the fiscal year. And you know, the balances here again is $20,280.23. So that's really the whole ball of wax. That's looking at each account. And again, I apologize for the erroneous dates. I'll update the report, read it, and I'll get a corrected one out to you. Okay, I was just in such a hurry yesterday to get it out that I made a mistake, and that's my bad. I apologize.
Okay, that's okay.
You know, I'm usually better than that. You know, but does anybody have any questions about anything in terms of where we are with the assets? Anybody? Yes.
John?
Hi.
I'm going to ask one question. Since interest rates seem to be trending down, is there any monies that we should be locking in at a higher interest rate for a longer amount of time in order to get the higher rate?
Well, it's a good question, and yes, and what we've been doing is Invesco has something called the Bullet Shares ETF, is exchange traded fund, and it owns investment grade corporate bonds, which means investment grade is BBB and higher, and it's got a finite maturity date of 2032, and its yield is at 5%. Okay, so that'll get locked in from now until December 31st, 2032, at which point it'll mature and you will, you know, have to figure out what to do with the money then. But that will lock that in. What will happen, because this is an exchange traded fund, it's not like a bond all by itself, it will fluctuate in value as interest rates change. And so when rates go down, the value of bonds go up. So what will happen during a period of time is it may have an impact on income. That income yield will fall, okay? But the per share value of the exchange traded fund will move up. So on a total return basis, you'll do better than probably the coupon. But again, that's only, you know, that's when rates begin to fall. Right now, because I've spoken to them, said, how do you operate this? And there could be 40 different bond issues in the exchange traded fund. If any are maturing within that period of time, they will replace it with another bond that will mature within that period of time. And then towards the, let's say 6 months or so, there are additional bonds that come due for whatever reason, they will put the money in a 13-week T-bill to keep the interest rates at a static point until they redeem and you get all your cash back. These are, you know, not that long ago, earlier today, I bought some, it was at 5.1%. So the yields changed just a tad. It's 5.091%. And that is a good place to put the money because you own a diversified portfolio of corporate bonds and the yield's higher than what you're getting now.
Okay, so do we have money in there?
No, we
don't.
haven't invested anything in
In that.
these. All the money's in the Federated Money Market right now.
Okay,
And, you know, the history of Women's League, originally we started, and, you know, Janet Kirshner will know this because we had, what was the floor in the old days, like 200, 250?
250, yeah.
Yeah, and we always kept it at that, but then as things got a little crazy in the market, we just increased it, and it's been that at, you know, where it is now for quite a number of years. And so that's the value system of Women's League, and we've stayed within those parameters for a very long time. So, but what you could do is when you buy or sell the Federated Money Market, there's no sales charges at all, okay? You buy it, it's one-day settlement, or you sell it, it's one-day settlement. The funds are available the next day. So in the case of an exchange traded fund, you buy it, there's no ongoing, you know, manager's fee or anything of that nature. The internal cost structures is in there. It's probably about 0.4%, I think. I'll double check that, but that's it. It's liquid. You can sell it anytime you want. So there's no restrictions or penalties or anything of that nature. Though, whenever we buy something for Women's League, it's always buy and hold. We've never been in that mode where we trade out of something because of whatever reason. We have pruned some things over a period of time because of the appreciation, and we reduced exposure, like, for example, Blackstone, which is in the primary account, and that's done quite well. The Blackstone position probably has $100,000 unrealized gain in it. I'm sorry, 192,000. So we paid about 90,000 and it's worth 282,000. And that was, we had some years ago, we had reduced our exposure in that area, but that's been a very good appreciation vehicle. Plus we've gotten income from it. So that's kind of where things are, Marjorie. Hopefully I answered your question. Anybody else have any questions?
I have
Rita?
I have 2 points to make if I could. The Women's League, the $186,000 account, which John had brought up before, that has about $10,000 in cash. I'll call it a checking account equivalent, right? Cash, no real yield. It has gotten bigger, mostly from dividends and income that has come in the door that just simply doesn't get reinvested. Do we need to have the ability to issue a check same day, or could we put that $10,000 in the money market at minimum? So that's question one for the group. I also have the last account John mentioned, one worth $20,000. I think you referred to it as a special account. As he mentioned, there's $19,000 in the money market. There's $1,200 in cash. I don't believe you just write a check. I'm sure if you're going to need money, you can tell us and we can sell the money market in a day's time. There's no reason to have any lazy cash sitting there with everybody's, okay. And then the last part is that the big account has about $35,000 in cash. Again, dividends come in and from all the different pieces and collect. We could have some already if you needed to rush a check out the door same day, but if there's not a need to do something same day, you take that $35,000 and put it in the money market as well. Now, the question is, do we have too much money market everywhere? But at minimum, if we have cash sitting,
Brett,
it shouldn't be lazy.
let me just stop you for a minute. I mean,
Please.
when they remove money, they can journal it out themselves, and they typically do that, okay?
If it's in the money market, you'd have to wait a day and tell us. That's
Right,
true.
so they know that if, and they always notify me, say, well, we're gonna take out X amount of dollars, so I would sell the Federated if need be, so that they'd have the cash ready, and it's usually it's always the next day. So these accounts all have a specific purpose, and I don't expect that to change anytime soon. And am I correct on that, Rita?
I guess we are. I think that's something that Julia should answer. I mean, she can foresee if we're going to have any additional expenses that we're not aware of in this committee.
Right, I think we can talk about that. And I'm not sure we need money sitting as cash when we can get it in Federated. I don't see any emergency where we would need something same day.
Even if we
but-
did, we'd probably take it out of the general fund, but we would never get in, we've never been in that situation that I've been in here involved with for the last 6 years. And Janet, maybe you can talk to that, but I can't see, most times we know what we want to do, and to wait a day has never been a problem.
Right.
So for us to earn what'd you say, the Federated was 4.77%? Why not do it? I mean, it sounds like it's a no-brainer.
All right.
On
so
another $30,000, $45,000, $50,000, somewhere in that ballpark.
Yeah,
A couple thousand
yeah.
dollars.
And maybe, maybe this is something that we should talk about, that every quarter when we have this meeting, there's always going to be cash coming in, right? So all the interest that's earned is automatically put into cash. That maybe we should have something that says once it gets to X amount of dollars, $5,000, it automatically gets moved into the Federation account, or once a quarter we move it, something like that.
Well, you know what we
Um,
do is I can take a snapshot of the accounts every month and I'll just call Rita and say, Rita, we got $3,000 of
Yeah.
income. I'm gonna put it in the Federated. You okay with that? Because we
Yeah.
can't just do something without talking to you first, okay?
Right, and just
Fine.
so everybody knows, that 20,000 money market account, that's basically the Sheldon Golden, the Jaffe Wall, and the leadership funds. There's the three funds that support that 20,000.
Right.
So, we're doing things with leadership, but right now, we haven't had to use any of that principal.
Okay.
So just so everybody kind of knows what that miscellaneous money market covers.
Okay.
Oh,
All right, so if I have your permission, I'll make sure that Brett and I look at this periodically and so whatever cash is not in the Federated in those three accounts, we'll invest it today, okay? We'll take care of that,
Thank you.
okay?
But and then the last point is that it was asked earlier, what do we do with all this cash if rates are coming down? So John mentioned the floor. I remember the floor being moved up to $400,000 in cash. Does that
It
sound
was at one time, yes.
right? Listen, we never want to get below that in money markets in the large account, and then obviously the other ones have their own purpose. So the scope of it, there's 700 and I think, what is it, $50,000 roughly in the large account in the money market. So if the floor is still 400, well, then we do have some hundreds of $1,000s above 720. So we have $320,000 more than the 400 floor, if that is the number, that could go find a home a little bit longer term. And to John's point of, if we're going to do it, it's not a 6-month or 12-month thing. You have to go out a number of years. Part of the reason is that we still have a situation where the very, very short-term rates, your money market, yields more than a 6-month, 2-year, 5-year treasury, even 10-year treasury. Short-term rates are still believed that they are artificially supported. The Federal Reserve pushed them higher to do what they need to do for inflation and employment. They're in the mindset potentially moving that lower over time. We'll see in the next couple of days if they do another reduction. May or may not rush to do it. But that happens to affect what happens to everything else very much on the extremely safe side. CDs, very, very high quality treasury or corporates, obviously treasuries. The relatively short term actually pays us less than the money market today. And the reason is that the expectation is that money markets may find their ways down to, 3.5% instead of 4.7 over the next year and change. That's the world that they're expecting for very short-term treasuries. Money markets would follow that. So if we're going to go take any of that excess cash that we don't need to sit in money market and extend out, John's point is we got to go out 6 or 7 years. And that's the only way we're actually going to get something that is a higher rate locked in and done. So
Well, the thinking anyway is the Federated provides you with tremendous liquidity. So, and I realize there's a comfort factor that the Finance Committee has reached relative to having that amount of money there. So maybe what you do, Marjorie, is you just put a little bit in at a time over a period of time. You're still going to have plenty where there's going to be no need to sell anything to raise money other than the Federated. You sell it, and you have the liquidity. So maybe you put $100,000 into the bullets or something like that for now. And then I talked to Rita enough, and I also have spoken to Julia. Whenever things come up from time to time, I can make them aware of what is out there, and then we can, have a discussion about it and figure out what to do accordingly.
I myself would not like to see us tie up money for any long period of time because we don't know what's going to happen now and we don't know what the market's going to do and, or what our investments are going to do. And we have a convention coming up in a year and a half and a little more than that. And I just would rather be more, maybe it's less conservative, or is it more conservative?
cash is more conservative.
Yeah, to tie up our money for 10 years out just to earn a little extra.
Well, actually, Rita, if we go out to 2032, which is basically the sweet spot for interest rates, you will lock in that 5% for that period of time. And the idea is even if you put 100,000 worth, you'll still have over 600,000 of liquidity available to you if you need it. And you guys have never taken out any more than maybe 100,000. I mean, I'll go back to 2022, you withdraw 150. And over the years, that has been your largest. I mean, that even back in 2011, I see 150. So the most you guys have ever taken out of here is 150 in any given year. So even if you'd pared down that 700 bit, you still wouldn't, you'd have tons of liquidity for quite a long time.
Please, Janet.
Yeah, the other thing is because we're earning 260 some thousand over a year, every month we're adding on average over 20,000 to the money market funds as well.
Well, the interest is being reinvested. back
No, a
in.
lot
But
of,
that's why,
well, no, the
that's
money
why
market
it
reinvest.
continues to grow.
Yep.
But that's why it continues to grow, because we've only taken, well, we've taken out 50,000 was to buy the Israeli bond, but the other 100,000 was to fund us over the shortfall of the next coming months till we get per capita coming in January. But you know, we're still earning, like Jan said, 20,000. It's just adding to that bucket, and it's going to continue to grow
Well,
unless we address it. Because, you know, I don't really foresee between now and the end of the year us having to pull any more funds from the main account unless there's, you know, something we wanted to do in the third or fourth quarter that Julia hasn't said we wanted to do. You know, so.
It's a secret.
Yeah, you know, so, you know, by the end of June, that 720 is going to be another 120,000 or more. It's going to
Yeah.
be 160,000. So it's going to be close to 900,000. So I really do think we need to kind of chat as a finance team.
Right, so we can have that
Maybe
discussion.
think about addressing that. Because if not, it's just going to continue to grow.
and to
Which
help
is not
you-
a bad problem to have.
But it's not about, no, I'm not suggesting that it's a bad problem. But it's not like we're gonna need $700,000 in any one year, even with the convention.
to give you just some food for thought, and then just let us know when you make a decision. The money market is 4.7 now. The treasury market, so investors in the treasury market are pricing in about a 3.5% short-term treasury, which is where the money market should track, by the end of next year. Now, that may not, that's going to change. Something's going to be different, right? But if the decision was, Brett, John, we're making 4.7% in the money market, why would we go to 5.0 or 5.1 for a lockup? I agree 100%. For 0.3%, 0.4%, why? Doesn't make any sense. More than likely, it's going to be a somewhere below 4, maybe 3.5 for cash, and a 5, right? So there is at least a reason. And the only question along the lines to Diane's point is that do we hedge our bets and have the cash reserve we know we should keep, and maybe not all the excess cash reserve, and that is the choice for the committee. But I think that's the gap you're probably going to look at is going to be closer to 1.5%, not point something.
And you know, Rita, I realize you're concerned about getting locked up, but even if, you know, you buy a typical bond with a maturity, whatever it is, you're locked up to that. You won't lose money on that investment provided you hold it to maturity, okay? But the reason we buy anything in fixed income is for the income. So the idea is to keep that income level at the 260 or whatever I estimated it to be going forward, is to, from time to time, look for some higher interest-bearing investments. And this happens to be one that, you know, I think it fits. It's not an unsuitable vehicle, but you guys have to feel comfortable with it. And if you don't, we don't do it. Simple. Janet?
Yeah, another question. Let's say in a year and a half, the money market rates are down to 3.5. Wouldn't the investment vehicle you're talking about, wouldn't that also go down or not necessarily?
No, it would not, because you're owning bonds that have a 2032 maturity. So if rates go down, the interest that that thing may pay may be affected, but the value of the portfolio will go up. It'll increase in value. And a typical bond, the same thing will happen, except in the case of a fund like this, the income for a bond does not change, regardless of what interest rates do. The value of the bond does, but not the interest rate that it pays. But the idea is that if we're going to get a 5.1% yield on something like this, you're going to earn pretty much that for the period of time you own it. Does that
Thank you,
answer your
John.
question?
We'll,
I just asked one more thing. I'm sorry. John, what is the penalty if you do need some of that money?
There's no penalty. It's a commission if you sell it. That's all it is.
Well,
Not
let me
like-
have it. So John's 100%. There's no penalty. There's a commission to buy or sell. The real question is, what could we lose? Right? I think that's more of maybe what you're getting to, Rita. Is that right?
Yes.
So if rates go up tremendously, the holding will go down in value. If the rates go down, it'll go up in value. That is the likely scenario, right? Is that rates are going to come down, not up. But anytime we own anything fixed income, if we agree at a 5% rate and later on rates are 6%, nobody wants our 5% at full price. Our thing has to be worth something less. So we could see some price movement and volatility. When we're buying this thing, it is a simple process. If we wait to maturity, it's going to mature. We will have made 5% and change between now and then. There'll be price fluctuations along the way. Most likely scenarios, rates are going to be here or lower, not necessarily higher. If that's the case, then it's going to be worth what we paid for it or something more, not necessarily less. The bond market can go down. We saw that in 2022. There was a tremendous rise in interest rates. And whether you sold a bond or not, your bonds could be worth 5 or 10 or 15% less, depends on how long it was in maturity, because nobody wanted a 2% bond when rates were 5, right? Your bond has to be worth something less. We can quantify it for you depending on where rates move, but you could have some price fluctuation. And then we're back to, just like everything else, it's an investment, it's not cash.
Right. Right. Well, I think that's something the committee has to discuss, I think,
Sure.
if we
Fine.
want to do that. Do we
Look,
all understand this? You know,
yeah, if you don't, then we're happy to help you to understand. The other thing too is you don't like it, we don't do it. Simple. You know?
right, so when we buy the bond, we're locking ourselves in until 2032. So, we're the only ones that own that bond, correct?
No, there are
No.
other investors that own it, but look, Rita, you also have, a Metropolitan Transit Authority bond, a New York bond, that's a 6.5 coupon, matures November 15th of 2031. We have let me see here, we have 50, Occidental Petroleum, it's a 7 7/8 coupon, matures September 15th of 31. So we do have some longer dated types of maturities. I got a Morgan Stanley bond at 7.25, maturing in 2032. There's 100 of those. I've got 50 of the Morgan Stanley 5%, and that matures in next year, next November. So we do have liquidity in the near term, and we're going to have to do something with that money when it matures. So, there is liquidity coming back to us, which can go back into Federated if that's what you want, or we buy another bond, which is typically what we do. Any preferred stocks that have been redeemed, we just replace it with another preferred stock. That's what we've done historically. But, you guys talk about it and figure out what you feel comfortable with,
And we'll get back to you.
Yeah, that's fine.
Thank you, John, and
Thank you so
Thank you,
much.
John. and
pleasure.
Brett.
Thank you.
And
Thank
again,
you.
I'm sorry about the mix-up on the report. I thought I corrected the
It's
date.
fine.
Apparently I didn't,
don't
but,
worry.
I will update it and get it out to all of you, okay?
Okay,
Thank you.
guys, have a happy Thanksgiving if we don't get to see you before then.
Too. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful day, everyone.
Yep.
Yeah, Rita, how's your hip?
It's my pelvis, but it's
Oh,
slowly healing, but
well, you look
just
like you're
one
doing
of
okay.
those things. Well, I'm in my comfy chair with my pillow right now, so, but it's just one of those things that takes a long time to heal. I have appointments with the ortho next week, so we'll see what he has to say.
All right, well, good luck with that, okay?
Thank you.
Thank you,
you.
John and
We'll
Brett.
talk to you soon.
Thank you,
Thank
everybody.
you very much, and you guys have a great holiday and Thanksgiving, and look forward to the next call that we have,
Great.
okay? And in the interim, if any of you have any questions, I'm always reachable, just call me, okay?
Right.
All
Thank
right,
you.
Take care.
Thank you.
I bet.
Have a good day.
All right.
Thanks.
All right, bye-bye.
Thanks, guys.
Bye-bye. We're going to turn this over to Diane for the treasurer's report.
Okay, are you gonna share it or?
I can't share, but I think Julia can.
You want me to share? Do I have the sharing
You can
capability?
share if you have it up, Diane.
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
Hold on, I think this is it. Let me get this bigger. Hold on. Can you see it or no?
Yeah, we can see it.
The whole thing? Or is
No.
it tiny?
Oh, I
Okay,
Not
all right,
the whole
so
thing.
we transferred the 100,000 from the main account to the Chase account. So we have 107,000 right now in that account. Per capita is starting to trickle in, a little bit, which is a good thing. Our results are, we have a loss of 47,000, but we had a budget of 89. So we're still ahead of budget. Strong revenue with JTS, additional funds from the investments. And then what John was referring to is the realized gain or loss. We sold some stock and then we turned around and purchased the ETF, which is the exchange traded fund, for $9,600, which was to diversify the portfolio. And the expenses were about 5,000, give or take. Some of the payroll and benefits are a timing. The one item that's not in the budget that we have spent money on is about 5,800 of that 6,100 in professional fees is the additional charges for the attorney to write up the governance related to the JTS contract that we currently have today. So
it's
as we go through,
the
and Julia, if you wanted to add
renegotiation.
anything else to that?
The renegotiation of the Torah Fund contract.
Okay, yeah,
We are using our attorneys to get this done. We'll have a little bit more. It's not finished yet.
Okay.
So that's where those charges come
Okay.
from.
Per capita, we've collected 16,000 versus a budget of 9, so we're ahead of it. So thank you, Janet and Pam, for doing a great job. I won't go through all these funds, but this is the list of the status of all our funds right now. And you can see where the convention reserve, we paid out 20,000 plus, give or take. So that's the 20,000 that was transferred out of the convention reserve. We have our deferred revenue, which is primarily right now the executive retreat and the 2-year bat mitzvah, in there. As far as credit card processing is concerned, we still have 6 regions. I had to re-verify the Florida region because of the change in bank accounts. As the region treasurers, we're all now using Quicken. Hooray. Thank you once again, Marjorie, Denise, and Lemore for helping me get there. We did have one resignation in Seaboard, Jill Jacobs. They nominated Rochelle, but she goes by the name of Stelly Pally. And she'll be working with the Seaboard region at the end of November. We have been experiencing some intimate log me in, and Rabbi, I hope this latest thing that tech support has put into place will alleviate any of the problems. My concern is, if this had been the office personnel, would that have prevented them from doing their day-to-day work? Or are you still able to log in with the other old way?
I don't think it would have interfered with our work.
Okay, all right. That was my only concern, because I couldn't go onto the network, but that's okay. It's not like I needed to be on there. And I'm not as concerned with the regions, but I am a little concerned with the region, with the corporate office. So, we did go ahead and bought $50,000 Israeli bond. We got Kansas sales tax exemption, so hopefully that will be used. And as far as the new accounting firm, we did pay them $5,000 last week as their deposit for them to begin the review work. Rabbi, we're going to have to circle back with them to see when they're available to begin field work, so that we can put it on the calendar, and that coordinates with, our timing. Obviously, if they can do it before the end of the year, that would be great, because once January falls in, we're going to have a lot more volume of checks, and Alexi is not going to have as much time to pull stuff. So, one thing that they replied back to us, because the question I had was, when they sent us the engagement letter, whether or not that included rolling up the amounts for the regions. And I put in there the last paragraph of exactly what they said back to us was, if the regional financial information is not included in your books, and it has to be detailed significantly for us to break out that information on the financial statements.
Here, Diane, you said if it is included in your books, in this
Right.
report.
And this is not. So what I'm saying to you is, the way the engagement letter is written right now, they will audit QuickBooks, and they will issue a review report on QuickBooks. They will not be issuing a review report on including the region financial information, if that makes sense. Because they're going to have to do a lot more work for them to incorporate all the 13 regions that we have into the financial statements, because each one of it is almost like it's standing book and records. So it's not like it's one region, it's 13 regions that they have to ensure that there's controls and those kind of things. So I just want to make sure, because I know that was one of the things on the agenda last time, and I just want to make sure everybody was comfortable with that and understood that.
Can you stop the share?
Yeah, so I'll stop the sharing. 1 second. Okay. Any questions? Janet?
I have two questions. One, the future fund, I didn't see that on your funds. Did money come out of,
I can put it on there.
did money come out of that too?
Yes, we took out 20,000 for the executive retreat, cash flow wise.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, and then,
I can add it because I guess it's considered, this was just to put our restricted funds, but I guess I was thinking more of that future fund wasn't specifically identified for anything, so that's why it wasn't restricted, but I'll add it. I'll add it next month.
and the other question relates to the review. Do we
Yeah.
know, if they were to include the regions, then do we know how much more they would charge?
No, but I'm gonna tell you right now, it's probably gonna be, I wouldn't be surprised if it's double the price.
I mean,
Because technically, they have to review 13 different books and records. It's
Are
not
we
that
gonna
it's,
talk
even though it's Quicken, it's 13 different communities they have to go into.
are we gonna talk about this later on the agenda, or should we talk?
Well,
about it now?
I think, that's all I had to cover. And since that's what they're planning to do, and we're gonna schedule the review, I don't know if you wanna just continue to have a conversation now, Mindy and Julia, or
I would think
we can
now, since
certainly
you've already
discuss
brought it
it
up.
when we get through the other things.
Okay. I don't know what we gain. What is the upside to having them review the regions?
No, I don't think it's worthwhile the money for them to be spending. I mean, it would just be nice. I mean, I reported the numbers, I think at the end of the year of what each region did. Beyond that, do we really need to have any detail beyond that? I mean,
You and Marjorie do a lot of review of each of the region's activities.
right.
I
So,
think Archie has a comment.
I don't think,
so I guess my question is, what is the goal of having the review? And at some point, do we randomly pick one region? So no region knows when they're going to be selected in the future, so that, we, it's more of a random that you pick, and you don't know if you're going to be picked. So you want to make sure your books are the way they're supposed to be.
So are you saying or suggesting that we include one region in this review?
Yeah, that you randomly, and Denise, I don't know if you can,
She just
Um,
went to get
Denise,
in her
right.
car.
I'm still here.
okay. So I guess I'd like to know, since I'm retired 30 some years ago. But the goal of this is to make sure that everything's accounted properly, that everything's where it should be, right?
Correct.
Okay. And what do you think of you pick one random region?
Well, I guess I'm a little confused. I thought the purpose of getting all the regions on Quicken and getting them on all the same categories and making sure everybody was doing exactly the same thing meant that we were going to put them all together and give them to the auditor for review. And that's not happening anymore?
Well, wait a minute. I thought the point of the review was in place of an audit, because the audit was so much more involved and expensive.
Right.
And that the review sort of, took
And originally I said,
an audit away.
the review should not include the regions. It wasn't necessary. But we did all of this work over 6 months and now we're
Asking-
not using it?
Asking, who's asking it for it to be with the regions also? Are the auditors asking that? If the auditors are asking, then I understand. They're under the same EIN, so they should all be audited. or
Right,
reviewed.
but they're not.
Nobody's
They're not. If they're
asking
not,
for
then
this.
we don't have to.
Exactly. I mean, it's great that we don't
we're
have
doing
to,
it.
but why did we get
Marjorie's-
everybody on the same page so that we
Well,
could?
I think the reason
Well,
why,
Marjorie's
was
doing
multiple
enough
reasons,
that we
right?
don't need
We
them.
wanted to have electronic records so that when there was change of administration, it wasn't that somebody handed a box of, of checks and what have you to somebody.
Agreed.
Second thing is, a little bit of visibility to ensure that things were being correctly handled. Like, are we reporting the W-9s that we should be reporting? I'm not so sure that we are, because 9 times out of the 13 people have no clue what a W-9 is. Or
90% of my clients don't do it right either.
yeah. So, and it was more of a comfort level. Also, too, as we're registering for sales tax in these various regions, we are asked to give them an audited or a report from a third-party accountant. In this case, a review. Now, we have not gone back to the accountant, and we certainly can, by dumping all the transactions from the 13 regions into an Excel workbook of all the activity for last 13 years. Will they be comfortable with that? It's not
Yeah, I don't
like
know.
I'm gonna load that transaction into QuickBooks of the total by region.
And they're only going to review your QuickBooks. They're not going to review work papers that you give them.
I don't know. I mean, I basically asked Rabbi to ask them, what is this engagement level including? Does it include the review of everything? Or it just includes what's in QuickBooks? And that's what their response was. So interpret what that response is. I mean, maybe we just need to have a conversation with
I'm
them.
comfortable with it only because I know that Marjorie and you look at every single region and pretty much know things are on the up and up. But when Marjorie's not doing it and you're not doing it, the next person may not be looking over as much as y'all are.
Yep.
So we need to consider the future as well.
So I guess Rabbi, maybe we need to go back to him and say, look, for the regions, which is in QuickBooks,
Again,
Quicken, can we download the transactions into an Excel file of the 13 regions so that you can consolidate the information?
I
Well,
think
I
we
said
need to
to
find
Ma-
out how much it is.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, and I think we need to find out, what additional costs, because they keep saying, as long as your books and records are in good condition.
A review
it's
is just
somewhere
looking
between
for something that
$7,000
looks.
and $8,500. I think that was the range,
Yeah.
right?
A
Lenore?
review is just looking for something that looks so out of the ordinary. They're not going to find little mistakes like you and Marjorie. They're
Yeah.
going to find if something looks wrong, that somebody took it, that kind of thing. That's
Yeah.
what they're looking for.
And isn't that, I guess, maybe for this review, we do that, and maybe we put in the back of our head that there's a review per administration, and maybe the next one does include regions once we get everything up and running. And
That's a
maybe
good idea.
this is
Yeah.
enough for this review.
I agree.
So I'm gonna ask and tell me if I'm overstepping my bounds. Denise, you talk the language because you do it. Does it make sense for you to talk to this accountant? to understand exactly what is going to happen or not happen.
I mean, I can, that's not a problem at all, just to see what they're gonna do, what the plan is, and then I
And
can
then-
report back to you and and Diane.
So can I just suggest though that Diane's been talking to him with me and Julia? So I don't know why we have to introduce a new person into it.
Okay.
Not necessary if you
know.
don't want.
It's up
Okay,
to
I
what
was just
Diane wants,
making
but I know
sure
Diane
you
has spoken to him
understood.
already. So, and I sent him an email just now to remind him to see when they wanted us to get on his schedule so that we can get all of our books in a row. So I told him so we can have exactly what Diane said at the beginning, to plan it with our staff and our leaders here. And I just think, I don't know, Diane, what do you think of introducing another person?
The
into-
only
Necessary.
The only reason I was suggesting it is that Denise has done reviews, etc. I haven't done something like that in 30 some years. And I wasn't sure if you knew what to expect, Diane.
Oh, I know exactly what to expect.
Okay,
It's gonna
fine.
be, it's not gonna be an audit, but it's gonna
No, no.
be a lot of, why don't we have a fixed asset policy? And we're gonna find things that
Okay.
they're gonna ask us, and then we don't have
I'm sorry,
Um,
Diane, why don't we have a what?
a fixed asset
Oh,
policy,
okay.
okay? Which we kind of have followed kind of
There's a
since
lot
I've
of policies we
been
don't
here
have in
anyway,
writing that they'll
but
make
but
us.
we don't
do.
have it in writing, and and things like that. Like, I can almost tell you what the types of things they're going to bring up, because I've been a CPA for 40 years, so I know what's involved with a review versus a compilation.
Okay,
It's gathering documents that for them to feel comfortable with our transactions. That's all. Now, I don't know if there is a way for us to load the total transactions. Like, if I were to run a pivot table of all the activities for the region, is there a way for us to just load one journal entry in QuickBooks just so it doesn't mess up our accounts? I don't know that.
So let's not do that this time.
Yeah,
don't
I
think we
don't
should
want to
merge
do
'em.
that. But
Unless somebody else disagrees.
I think we don't have to do this anyway. I mean, whatever
Right.
we do we're not
Is-
required to do it.
right, no.
correct.
Right, it's
Right.
one step,
We-
you start small and work towards whatever.
The
Yeah.
main reason why we're doing it now is that we need a review to show the state of Virginia where we're gonna have our convention in order to get our tax exempt form.
Well, we also
Okay.
haven't had a review, we haven't even had a
Oh, that
compilation
too, right?
in a long time. And we've had two administrations, and it's really our fiduciary responsibility to have a review. But as Diane said, they're gonna ask for all kinds of schedules and all kinds of policy. And I think it's enough to just focus on Women's League,
And not on the region.
headquarters, and not on the regions. We certainly can look at that at a later date.
I
I mean,
agree.
that's basically what the compilation in previous years, when Stanley did the compilation, he only incorporated the corporate office activity.
Okay.
Thank you, Diane.
So do you want me to go back to him and inquire about the?
I don't think it's
including-
necessary.
Okay. Okay, so then we'll just leave it at that we're just gonna have the review on the corporate office.
And once the review is done, we'll have a whole slew of things to talk about.
Right.
Oh, yeah, I'm gonna tell you right now, yeah. You know what? I'm gonna put a list together. I'm gonna send it to Julia and see how far off I am.
We'll put it in a sealed envelope and
Yeah,
then
I'll put it in
do
a sealed
open it
envelope
up.
and open it
And you
after
match
the
this.
review is
Uh-huh.
done.
I have a question. Does this review get done in accordance with Sarbanes-Oxley?
No, because that's an audit.
Only an audit? Okay.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's another reason why you would want it, yeah.
So
Okay,
wait,
we have
maybe I missed
consensus?
something. Who's doing the review? Who is actually doing it?
Yeah.
This
Huh.
Scotty Scott and Company,
The
which
Scott-
is, they're in the same building as the
Right,
offices,
what I
but they're on a
thought,
different floor.
right.
Nice.
So who is this other person?
Who is
Jan-
what?
Who Janet just talked about?
Oh, well, that was the old accountant that did the
No,
compilation.
Sarbanes-Oxley is a law that.
It's a law associated with audits, not a review.
Not a person, not a company.
So are
And
we
remember,
doing, but?
we are not
all?
required by law to do anything if we did not want to do it. We are not obligated. We are really doing this for the comfort of two things, in my opinion. For us to register sales tax in various states, and two, to give a comfort level on the change of administration. That's
Right.
it. And maybe a third reason is to allow us to do like a quick view, one-page document so that donors or potential donors can feel more comfortable that we're a strong financial cash flow organization that to invest in.
Okay. Okay.
So
As
can
long
I
as
just
we're
summarize it?
operating within the law.
It sounds like we're not going to include the regions. Is that, am I correct?
Right.
All right.
Yes.
Okay, anything else?
Diane,
this
did you
report?
already talk about the electronic payments that the
No,
treasurer can
No,
make?
that's on the agenda.
That's
Okay.
on the agenda. So we're gonna, to move this along, we're gonna go to Rabbi for her executive director's report.
Okay, good to see everybody. I already sent Larry, who's our accountant, an email saying that we need to meet with him. I ran into him in the lobby the other day, but he doesn't always, he knew who I was, but I think he couldn't place who I was, but it's okay. He was a little scattered. I have to say that you asked why everybody's on the server, etc. It actually happened, I mean, it's a couple of months now since the transition between administrations, but it went so much smoother than the last time, when the last time treasurer to treasurer and the region didn't have the materials or didn't want to give the materials. So this was much smoother, and Yasha Kochachen for doing that, because it was very good. The more that TechZoom is with us, that's our IT people, the more they tell me that things need to be updated, which means the more they tell me we have to buy things and more expensive. But apparently I'm gathering, after they did a whole thing last week that people weren't on Log Me In, then he suddenly told me they didn't have enough memory or something or other, so they had to get some, I had to order something from Amazon to upgrade the server. So once you start, you continue just needing more upgrades, just so you know.
Rabbi, can I just,
Yes.
and this is just something to think about. I have a question is, why aren't we on the cloud? Why do we have all these servers in New York? And is it more efficient for us to be on the cloud?
So,
But, that's not a decision that, a topic we need to talk about unless you have some information, but
no, I would definitely need to talk to Ralph about that, about the
Yeah.
difference between a cloud and a server and all that.
yeah.
I can tell you that from experience, since our CRM is on a different type of situation, when certain things happen, everything just crashes, which could always happen. But if I think in a virtual world where people aren't always in the same place, a cloud might be interesting as opposed to a server that needs a place to live. But I'll ask Ralph about that. We talk frequently, so I can ask him. In terms of my report, very happy that we got the per capita invoices out when we were supposed to get them out. People are responding already. Lexi is quite amazing. If you have not worked with her yet, you should. The minute something comes in and she sees that, if someone paid for 200 members and they're listed as 250, she emails those people and copies us and says, where are your other 50 people? So, and she's educating our affiliate members as well, because it kind of freaked someone out the other day when they said, how do you know how many members we have? And she explained the whole process of how we can tell what's on the CRM. So she's really very good with that. And already sisterhoods have sent money that they didn't cover originally. And as she brings them on, as she's putting in, just another thing so you know, as we get people paying their per capita, she's making a running list for me. And then I'm going into the CRM when I have time to see how many of those sisterhood members we have their emails, because we want to, everything is on each other for communication purposes. I'm seeing who they have as in their email list, and a lot of these people have emails but they're not subscribed, so by paying their per capita we now are subscribing them, so we're getting more people that we're corresponding with. Many of you will be at the retreat next week, God willing. Their expenses with that, but we're covering them, so that's good. And office expenses, in terms of, we try to be as frugal as we can be without being cheap. But also our lease is probably going to be renewed, and they do that January 1st. So I'm going to start bothering her about that shortly. You always hear about the weather in the office. Now that they fixed the HVAC, it's now freezing in the office, but whatever, it's okay. And we have already, I have two more things, don't worry, I'm almost
But you're
done.
at home
Finished.
today.
I
That's
am
why
home
you're wearing
today.
Sleeveless, we don't have to see you
And it's
freeze.
81 degrees out. It's ridiculous how warm it is in New Jersey. I don't understand any of, the world is going crazy. So the two last things, the calendar diary for next year, which is one of our forms of income. I'm very excited to say that Karen's really working on that a lot with Esta. And it should be, when we send out the information about it, we actually should have it in hand, because she's the most done that I've ever seen her be in terms of publication. And we might even have them before like perm, but we'll see. Very last thing is that Giving Tuesday is the Tuesday right after Thanksgiving. We put that in the Women's League week this week. We even got donations already. And one person today said to me, we don't have a matching person. So I'll be calling her, seeing if she wants to be our matching person. But if you have any ideas for someone to be a match, that would be great. We did it a few years ago. Unfortunately, one of the people who was supposed to match actually never gave me their money. But things fell through. But if we want anyone to do that, Giving Tuesday for Women's League, which is different than the Torah Fund, Women's Giving Tuesday is for Masorti Days of Study. So
Does I have a question
Yes,
just while
that's all
we're
for
talking
now.
about that. Well, just for everybody else, does anybody remember when we raised the per capita to $15?
Yeah, I did the research. Can you
Yeah, I
hear
asked
me?
Janet.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's under my administration.
That's
I
what
was.
everyone's told me. What year was it?
Okay, the year end, fiscal year 13 was the last year of $10. Fiscal 14 and 15 were transition years. They were $13. But fiscal year 14, if you paid by January, you could still pay $10. And fiscal 16 was the first year that it was a full $15.
Right.
And I have all that. I can send that to you, Julia and Rabbi.
Okay,
That'd be great.
thank you.
Thank you.
Rabbi, did you say anyone that pays, any individual that paid per capita, we're now going to subscribe them?
Yes. If I have their email. If I have their
Okay.
email, I don't know how quickly I'm going to be able to do it. And it's amazing. There was one sisterhood that has like no emails at all. It's like horrible how few
Right.
emails they have.
So what happens is, even if you enter somebody's email, if the data manager at a sisterhood enters the email, they get it generates an email to them saying, welcome to the Women's League online world, but they have to accept that. So it's like a verification process. And many times they just delete that email. They don't do anything with that. So then they're out in limbo, They're not subscribed. They can't get our communications, but we have their email. So, but we believe in talking to the lawyers that because they're paying their per capita, they are giving us the right to send them information. So we are
Driving them.
forcibly subscribing them so it doesn't generate that email to them. They'll just start getting our communications.
Good.
Because I also have a feeling that the email that they get probably goes to their spam, which says you're now a member. So. And any other questions people have, I'm available.
Thank you. Let's move on to per capita, Janet and Pam.
Do you want me to share the report?
I have it up too if you want me to.
Okay, could you share
Yeah.
it, Rob?
The motions, right?
Well,
This-
just a report first for a minute.
Oh, of course, that one I didn't have up. Sorry. So if you have that one,
Am I a co-host?
Anybody can share.
Can everybody see the report?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, except I can't see it. Okay. I'm not going to read or go over each item in the report. Really, I just want to know if anybody has any questions. We give the status of the per capita receipts year to date, but Diane already went over that. We sent individual letters to disaffiliated sisterhoods. We sent the invoices out, as Rabbi said. So it's a brief report. Does anyone have any questions?
When does that past due get cleared?
Okay, the two sisterhoods, one is in Intercontinental Region. So still trying to work through Denise to get that one taken care of. And the other one is Heart Zion, Agudath Achim in Silver Spring. And we're going to hear from Pam about that.
Janet, have we adjusted for the items less than $100, debits and
Yes,
credits?
Yes, we already did.
We already did that. Okay,
Okay,
great.
back in August.
Terrific.
Yeah. Credits and debits. Okay. All right, why don't we go to the motions then?
And if I can,
Oh, should I stop sharing?
yeah,
Okay.
you have to stop sharing. If I can just ask you and Diane to just update the headers on the reports for the exec committee.
it's up, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Wait, I don't,
It's a,
is it up? Okay. Okay, so originally I had two motions, but we now have three motions, two disaffiliations, and a variance. I'm going to go over the first disaffiliation motion for Temple Israel, Portsmouth, New Hampshire, North Atlantic region, and then turn it over to Pam to do the other disaffiliation and the variance. So the motion is that we move to disaffiliate Temple Israel, Portsmouth, New Hampshire, North Atlantic region. This, they had been a part of us for a few years, and then they reaffiliated in October of 2023. So they did pay per capita for 1 year. But in May, we heard from Rachel Dennis, the sisterhood president, that they decided not to rejoin Women's League for 24-25. But working with North Atlantic region leadership, they wanted to go in there and make a presentation about Women's League. And over several months, they tried to work with the North Atlantic Region leadership, tried to work with the sisterhood to get in there to make that work. And they were never able to make that work. And Esther Lichtenstein also tried very hard. She had a contact with Ryan Bernstein, who's the administrative director of the sisterhood, of the synagogue, who came from her synagogue. So she reached out to him, and that really aggravated Rachel Dennis. And we heard back from her basically saying she didn't want to hear anything more about Women's League. So we are submitting this disaffiliation motion.
Okay, so let's call the vote to move to
Is there
disaffiliate.
comments? I just have one quick question.
Sure.
Did you know that Esther was going to be speaking to this person, or she just did?
No, she told me.
Okay, just curious. Okay.
So a move to disaffiliate, when I can't see it, I can't.
Temple Israel, Portsmouth, New Hampshire,
New Hampshire.
North Atlantic Region.
Sorry, I thought you wanted to see people's hands.
No, I
Okay.
I certainly need both. All right, all in favor? Motion carries.
I sort of have one question, which I should have asked before, but is this person who doesn't want to hear any more about Women's League, is she like the gatekeeper, or does the whole sisterhood feel that way?
She's the president, but she said for the whole sisterhood that they didn't get anything out of Women's League.
Yeah, well, okay.
And we hear that, unfortunately, we hear that a lot. But we're
And
gonna
what,
address that.
did anybody ask her what were her expectations of what she wanted to hear from Women's League or get out of Women's League? What were the expectations that?
Okay, I did not speak to her.
I'm just wondering, is it worth trying to find out what were they expecting that they were disappointed in? I mean, we have to
I
learn
hear you,
some
Rita.
of these.
A lot of these sisterhood affiliates look to their own programming within their synagogue. And synagogues have become very aggressive in what they're offering their membership, because they have to triage their own bleeding of membership. And so women start looking and say, well, what does Women's League give us? We've got programs. I hear that a lot. I don't know about I'm assuming that this may be one of the reasons that if they look to us for programs, this is already being taken care of in a lot of affiliates. So this may be a reason. I am not saying it is a reason, but I'm just putting it on the table to think about.
Because I think Women's League offers, under Julia's administration, is offering so much more than I've ever seen come from Women's League. And you have so many opportunities. If you want to study Hebrew, if you want to become an adult bat mitzvah, if you want to be in a discussion group, a book group, if you want to be in a other kind of discussion group with other women from across the country. We never had all of that before. And, from what I've seen, we really have expanded.
If you know about those things.
Well, so that's my next.
Exactly. And a lot of these, you have this turnoff and you have to know about it. And that goes back to communications. And that goes back to how many of the members are actually getting the information about Women's League. I mean, we're in this circle. We've got to reverse the flow so that they understand what is the importance, what is the relevance, what is the gift of Women's League to them, what is the purpose, and all of that needs to be, at this retreat, needs to be reviewed and talked about, and then figure out how to get that message to our leadership, the sisterhood presidents, and make sure they're drinking the lemonade and sharing it.
Well,
So it's a lot.
Can you
Right.
share again, Rabbi, the other motions?
Okay, second one. Okay, this is Kol Nashim of Tiferet Israel, Washington, D.C., Seaboard Region. It currently has 30 members. This was kind of a last edition because I had a conversation yesterday where everything was kind of confirmed in terms of where they're at. The motion is that we move to disaffiliate Kol Nashim of Tiferet Israel, Washington, D.C., Seaboard Region. In October, Kol Nashim's president, Louise Kelly, contacted Women's League to say that Kol Nashim Sisterhood affiliate members voted to rescind their membership to Women's League in July 24th. So this was a vote that was taken earlier. We were just learning about it. And they said that this October email, this is your official notification of where we're at. Effective immediately. So please note those words. Their membership has been dropping since the pandemic. I had asked, how could you go, what happened between, at one point you had 255 members and now you have 30. And she said that was a bump. There was a bump caused by the pandemic, and that as we crawled out of the pandemic, they're doing more of a reality check, and the women, we've got 30 members that they're dealing with, not 255. The other thing was that their board membership dropped from 10 to 5. There are a number of reasons. It's the aging population, it's illnesses, but most importantly is that their synagogue is going through a reorganization, so that they're pulling in their affiliates under one umbrella. The synagogue is going to have their own program VP who will be planning everything for everybody. And so Sisterhood is caught up in that. But the key thing is that at this moment, and since we have gotten the notification and before that, they're inactive. They're not doing anything. We had granted them a variance of 850, 20, 23, 24. But at this point, when I spoke to Louise yesterday, she said there's nothing going on. It was a very warm conversation. And all I could do as I had a lovely conversation was to simply say, please know that Women's League will always be here for you. It's like saying to your child, the door is always open. That was the kind of message, that we're here for you. We understand your challenges. Thank you so much for your dedication over these years. And then, we talked a little bit about opportunities for those women that want to stay involved, that they will have an opportunity to become individual members. But it was kind of a heart-wrenching discussion, and that basically they do not exist anymore. So that's why we are asking a vote, and we move to disaffiliate Kol Nashim of Tiferet Israel, Washington, D.C., Seaboard Region.
All right, can we stop the share for a moment so we can see hands?
No discussion? Okay.
Any discussion? Yes.
Well, no, I mean, I've known this synagogue is one of the old synagogues in Washington.
Mhm.
And it's been around forever, but it's in an area that is not a growing area for Jewish families or any young families to become affiliated with. So in other words, it's not like Addis Israel, it's like upper northwest
Yeah.
corridor of Washington, almost to the Maryland border, but it's not. And it's just not a growing area for young families or anything like that. And I think that might be part of it. And they've gone through some changes with their rabbis as well, I think, the rabbinical.
I would agree, and I think the restructuring that she was describing to me yesterday is also a part of this. They're hanging on for their dear life within their
are,
community. So it was kind of a heart-wrenching discussion with them, but this is the reality.
Yeah.
Any further discussion or questions? So can we take a vote? We move to disaffiliate Kol Nashim of Tiferet Israel, Washington, DC, Seaboard Region. All in favor? Okay, motion carries.
And the third.
Okay, this was a request for a variance. This is Congregation Lador Vador, Little Neck, New York, BQLI region. The motion is we move to approve a variance of $11 for Congregation Lador Vador, Little Neck, New York, BQLI region for fiscal year 2025. The discussion was that they have requested this because, again, their membership is going down. And their demographic is aging, basically 70 to 80-year range. And she says we even have 90-year-olds. But it is the same situation where they don't have an influx of young families, et cetera, so they don't see a lifeline coming through. The dues at which point that they charge their members are $25, 15 of which goes to Women's League. And they said that doesn't leave a whole lot for their programming or for operating expenses, as she called it. They, in terms of their own synagogue, again, we have a synagogue that is trying various kinds of things to survive. They're maybe entering into a discussion to partner with another area synagogue in the very near future. So it's an uphill battle that we're seeing with this congregation and the sisterhood as well. They have been members since 1949, so they don't want to disaffiliate that. It would be difficult for them to disaffiliate. They have a very warm feeling about Women's League. So that's why they're asking for this variance of $11 to help them in 2025. And they know that and agreed to a consultant that will be helping them through this challenge. So are there any questions on this?
Did you?
Discussion.
You want to stop the share?
Sure.
Thank
Did you,
you.
I'm just curious, did you say that the sisterhood might merge with another synagogue?
No, the synagogue itself.
synagogue
No,
might.
the synagogue, I'm
Oh,
sorry.
the synagogue. No, that's what I thought you meant, but.
Yeah, so they're again, it's this, they don't know what's going to be happening. They sense what could be happening. So they want to do whatever they can to sustain their sisterhood as it is. And so they're asking us for help to help them do this. But that's basically what it is.
And this is Janet Tobin's sisterhood, just for people
Yeah.
to put it in
Yes.
our PIP, so.
Yeah. Are there any further questions? So can we call the motion? We move to approve a variance of $11 for Congregation Lador Vador, Little Neck, New York, BQLI region for fiscal year 2025. All in favor? Okay.
Motion carries. Thank you, Janet and Pam.
We're
Anything
not,
else?
we're not, yeah, we do
Oh.
have one, well, we gave you two disaffiliations and one variance. We have two more sisterhoods that we're working with that want to disaffiliate, but we didn't want to do a motion until we work further through that. And Pam has one that is a little unusual. I mentioned, Julie asked about one of the balances. Heart Zion Agudas Achim owes $165 from last year. Pam, we want to do something a little different with them. Pam, you just want to briefly?
Sure. They initially sent us an email saying, and these are their words, that they are going to be on an indefinite hiatus and closed as a sisterhood. So that was an interesting terminology. They have a membership of about 30 at this point. They have no meetings. No one is collecting dues. Many of their members are aging or ill of health. Members are moving away. Their synagogue is not growing. I mean, this is the same issues that we've heard from our other affiliates that we talked about today. Sharon, basically, the president, Sharon Kohani, said, we're burned out. And she, when I first started to talk to her, she says, I'm stepping back from sisterhood. I'm going to turn this over to somebody else.
She was president when I was region president.
Yeah,
10
she
years
said,
ago.
14 years she's been there. So we engaged in a conversation, and she, we had talked a while, and I said, rather than disconnect entirely, from our mothership of Women's League, how would they consider a sabbatical year, so that we would keep the connection? It would be, it's like a forgiveness for a year. Would you be interested in something like that? We would stay in contact with you. We will be here for you. And come June, we would officially say, where are you? But this would enable us to have a contact, put some guardrails around what they described as an indefinite hiatus, and become more of a presence with them. So where they are right now is that she is stepping back, but she said there are a few women who have recently said that they might be interested in keeping things going and keeping them alive. She would like them to think about this idea of a sabbatical. They have my contact information, and I can circle back and see if I don't hear from them to talk about this option. I will reach out back to them, but that's kind of in process right now. When I asked about the invoice of $165, I had asked if they could please update their membership list for us. And she said that she will speak to her membership person, or the person that was taking care of the database, and just see if they could do that. So she is very helpful in terms of kind of connecting again. She wasn't sure she wanted to do that, but she is connecting again. So we'll see where this is going. But it's in process, things are in motion, and we're doing everything we can to avoid this disaffiliation. So that's in process. Janet?
Keep us updated.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so, I mean, a sabbatical is really, basically we would forgive them their per capita for fiscal year 25, but I think it's just a better, more friendly way to phrase it to them. Is everybody okay with that?
And they were very, she was very responsive to this conversation, which I thought at first she wasn't going to be, but she was. And I took that as a positive, so we'll see.
Okay, well, we'll pursue it then.
Anything else before we move on? Okay, so we're going to go a little out of order. I'm going to have Marjorie talk about region budget, and then we'll finish the new business off.
Okay. 9 regions have submitted their first quarter allocation requests and the required forms. The region's allocation funds, if it was applicable, have been transferred into their accounts. And I think Diane is also assisting or reaching out to the remaining regions. Only 2 of the 4 remaining regions that have not sent items in have an allocation due for first quarter, but we'd like reports from all the regions. So it's a little bit slower of a start with everyone on the remote desktop.
Questions for Marjorie?
Marjorie, have you sent out, because I only saw the one, have you sent out the other 3 that
So,
we haven't got back?
so I've sent out one of the other 3. The other 2 I have not.
Okay.
Life got crazy.
Yeah, well, no, I'm
Yeah.
wondering if they're misunderstanding, like there's no allocation due, so maybe they think they don't have to submit the reports, but that's
No.
not the case.
No.
So, you know,
And I
just
was
wanna
gonna
make sure
let
we're
them know.
Circling back with them And if we need to schedule a meeting, you know, we
Exactly.
schedule a meeting.
Exactly. So we are meeting, remind me tonight with,
We're meeting with, INR. No, North Atlantic.
okay, so that's one of the, so
That's
that's
the one of the ones that we owe money to.
Florida
Yeah.
has sent me some of the reports, but not everything. And when I've requested, I just never got the other. And I tried signing in and couldn't get in, but I'm gonna try again. And
Okay.
then the other two I haven't heard from are Garden State and INR. Again, like you said, they neither have balances, but I was gonna reach out that I want reports.
Right.
So,
Thank you, Marjorie.
thank
All
you.
right, so that brings us to new business. We already discussed the review. That's the region and the review. That's already done. That was item 5. Item 1 is a question of increasing the frequency of the Finance Committee meetings in order to move the investment review to a separate meeting that would still be once a quarter. Because I think today it was about an hour and 20 minutes. And we've
Right.
been on for
And
2
when we
hours already.
have, I mean, this is enough new stuff and regular stuff. So I did not go through and find those suggestions of dates to give to Mindy, but that's my suggestion, that we get the dates on the calendar, whether it's, excuse me, whether it's once a month that we're meeting, and then meet with John, you know, the once a quarter. And if we don't have anything to discuss on that month, then we don't have to meet.
Yeah, that's my suggestion, is make it a monthly meeting and every third meeting is a John meeting only. And if we have any urgent things to pass, that's fine. But these meetings can't, I mean, I have to
They
go
go
in a
on
few
for
minutes
2.5
because They go
hours.
on for way too long and it's the middle of the day for me. And I can't keep doing that. So that's my suggestion, is we keep it to an hour and a half. You know, make sure that we're making our agenda tight and that, you know, like, for example, you know, I read everything before today's meeting, and then everybody, when we went over all the disaffiliations, you know, we had to go over everything, but I already read it. So for me, that this last half hour, I felt like I did it twice. And so I think we just need to button things up and make things a little bit more, you know, make sure you read everything before the meeting. And, you know, if we can get it sent out a few days before instead of the day before, that's even better. And I know, Mindy, that's just when you're getting it, so it's not anything on you either. And then just, you know, Janet can start out by saying, we sent you 3, you know, 2 disaffiliations and 1, you know, and 1
Variance.
variance, any question, you know, any questions, that sort of thing, so that we're
So
not
I'll send
rehashing it.
some
and we can
dates.
get
I'll
it.
try to keep it at the Wednesday, you know, I'll try to keep it Wednesday at 1. Whatever Wednesday of the month it is, we'll see, and we'll just have that as a standing meeting.
Can you do it before the exact? Each month?
Oh, yeah. I mean, in fact, what I had done this time was I scheduled it a week apart. So if we had to send out motions, it wasn't the next day. So it'll be probably the week before the exec meeting then.
So it's probably going to be the first Wednesday of
The
every month.
first Wednesday of the month.
All right, so hopefully
That just
we'll get
provides
that done.
difficulty in getting for Diane to get reports.
Yeah,
on the
yeah,
first of the
like,
month, right?
you know,
So
today's
she's not going to be able
report,
to report.
the month, yeah. I
But you'll
mean,
have the previous, you know, we'll just work a month back then.
Okay,
Alright.
as long as you're all okay with that, because I could tell you that this morning's the first morning that I had the bank statement in the account. Much less be able to actually reconcile, so.
I think
Because it
once
takes
we're
Chase like 3 or 4 days to do it, so.
But
think
we
once
have
we're consistent-
September,
Mhm.
so, you know, and then maybe it'll be the catch up with the meeting with John. Oh, we are at the first Monday of the month. The first Wednesday. Okay.
We are.
Well, you know, it will be what it will be.
All right. So the next item is policy for region tow refund events.
Could we skip that one and go to number
Sure.
3 first?
Sure. Ability to use bank check process for payments.
Right, okay, so I'm getting a lot of questions from the regions treasurers to say, you know, do we continue to need 2 signatures on every check? And now that we're kind of getting us to the electronic world, they want to start using ACH as the payment processing, or even checks. A lot of banks will send out checks without any additional cost for postage, without any additional costs, you know, to send them out, okay? So in order to do that, we would need to set up a process to still have 2 approvals, okay? And the way I kind of envision it is we're currently doing this today in the corporate office. I'm not there, Rabbi's in New York. Like on today, you know, Lexi's at her home, Rabbi's at her home, and I'm here in Florida. Or Lee Moore is in North Carolina. So if one of us needs to approve something, we email like once a week, here's all the check requests that needs to be reviewed. I then go into the QuickBooks, look at the invoice that's attached, and I may question it or whatever, and then I approve it. Then the next day, Lexi goes into the bank, processes the payment, and then I release that payment. So in theory, Rabbi is approving and I'm approving all of the transactions, but neither one of us are sitting there signing checks. And I haven't signed a check in 4 years that I've been involved. So I think there isn't any downside to this. I just think we should make it available to folks who want to do it. I'm not saying that this is the requirement. If somebody still wants to sign 2 signatures on the checks, all power to them. What I'm saying is I'd like to offer them another option to be able to do check payments in the bank as long as there's 2 approvers. Now, the one caveat, like if Rabbi's expenses, she can't approve her own. So I always make sure that Julia approves the rabbi. So in the case of the president, if she's getting reimbursed for her expenses, somebody else other than her has to approve that transaction. So it would be the region treasurer and then whoever else is a third, you know, is on the bank account as an authorized signer would need to sign off so that you're not getting, because right now I'm assuming, and maybe this is me, that all in the years past, the president has been signing their own checks. So in theory, the second signature becomes null and void. But I don't know that, but I'm just saying, I have to imagine that we probably have done that more than not. So in order to do this, we just need to have that, okay, the region treasurer would go in to put the check request in, but then the president would have to go. Now, this is the only downside to it. They have to go in that day and depend upon the cutoff, like we have a 4 o'clock cutoff. So they would have to go in and approve that transaction that given day. So it's just another way for them to process the payment. But it still ensures that we have 2 signatures. Janet.
Yeah, what about the region bylaws?
Well, we'll have to change the region bylaws to accomplish this change.
Okay.
I don't have a problem with letting them do that, but I just think it's too easy to, I mean, if I want to go in and have the bank send a check, I just go into my account. Like, how do they have to set that up with the banks that it's going to be 2 people? And
Well,
they can do that at the banks? Like not one person can't just go in?
the rabbi is the administrator for the bank account. Okay? The treasurers, I would think, are the administrators for their region accounts. They may or not be, maybe the president is, I don't know. But there would have to be, in order for this to be set up, there would have to be something where the treasurer would have to go in and set up secondary authentication. And
Okay,
all
if we
banks
can do
have that.
then great. You know,
All banks have that, so that if the region treasurer puts in the transaction, she can't release the button to push it through a payment. Somebody, a second person has to go in and release that payment.
and if they want to do it and they're willing to get on by the cutoff date, great. You know, but I think that's fine. Give them another way. Anyone else?
Any
have
other thoughts?
Diane, one quick question. Who reconciles that bank account? Or the bank account that most of
The region treasurer?
no, like at a, okay, I see what you're saying. I'm thinking women's league level, but that.
Women's league, like
No, that's
Lexi,
okay,
I
you're
mean,
right.
usually Lemore reconciles the account, so now I have.
I
a third
reconcile the
party that's
account because
reconciling it.
Lexi enters everything in, so
And
I
you
reconcile it as a second set of eyes.
Yeah,
So,
and most of the
But
time,
really, if we
I'm
had a
always
bigger
approving it,
office.
but in like last week, Lemore had to approve it because I was out of town. I was, traveling.
Right.
So, but other than that, there's like almost 3 people in
Right,
corporate
that's
office
your-
that's
And
looking.
if we had a bigger
Right.
office, Marjorie, it wouldn't be me. I'd
No,
be supervising the
I'm trying to
person doing it, but I'm doing it. And
but
so,
region level, it's gonna be the treasurer inputting into the treasurer,
Reconciling
Yeah,
it.
reconciling.
just. Okay,
Otherwise, you reconcile the activity in Quicken. If you had another party, I mean, who would that be? It would almost have to be another person who's on the signature card, independent of that party. And then we would have to give them security and access to Quicken. You can't
Right.
reconcile the bank account without getting access to Quicken. And then we've got 2 different people going in under the same, and I'm not sure that's a good thing.
you know what I do as treasurer of my sisterhood? I send a list of the transactions made during the month and who they're to the president.
Yeah.
So Diane, is this extra work for you that you're gonna have to get them to set up this with their bank? So they'll just go into their bank and be able to set it up?
I'm sure they're gonna need some. I'm hoping that the ones that want to do it are tech savvy.
Okay,
The ones that are struggling right now just to do the basic reconciliation, I'm thinking they're not even going to want to entertain this.
okay.
But I don't know. I mean, personally, I would like to be on the call with the bank when it's all set up. But there's nothing I can do to ensure that there's a second party that doesn't go into the bank and change something, any authorized signer, as long as you're assigned as the administrator on the account, can make changes
Right.
without anybody else knowing it. And there's no corporate control on that. And I don't think we want it to be on that, but that's the nature of the beast is, we just don't know who these authorized signers are. And even though you're an authorized signer, doesn't mean that you have the ability to administer the bank account. So, like, I could not do the setup. Rabbi is the only one that could do the setup. But it was set up that way to ensure that I just didn't go in and process the payment, which is a good thing. But with the regions, how do I make the president the one that is the administrator of the account when the region treasurer is most likely the administrator of the account.
But if somebody wants to do something, they're gonna do it just as easily with a check as they are signing into the account.
Yes.
So hopefully we're choosing our treasurers wisely when we select them.
Right.
You know, I did get Denise is, you know, going from place to place. She said, I approve as long as there is 2 approvals.
Yeah.
So that was her thoughts on
Mhm.
that.
And Marjorie, you're looking at their bank statements and their reconciliations at least every quarter.
I am.
So, you know, if there's something going on.
And
you'll-
not only that, to be honest, little by little, I'm gonna go into each, you know, list of transactions to see you know, again, I was struggling to get into Florida, but I was able to get into, I want to say, North Atlantic region.
Well, there was the reason why you may have been struggling with some and not others.
Yeah.
Over the last week, there were certain ones that were down offline
Okay.
and other ones were not. So that Florida could have been one of them. So try again.
Yeah.
Everybody's
Oh,
up
I
and
will.
running.
I was planning on it.
Yeah.
So yes, and I think, you know, doing our reports the way we are, and I do look over their bank accounts. So, you know, would I notice, you know, whatever? I don't know. You know, I don't, you know, I get one copy of a bank account, or a statement, but they are starting to put more online, and I could randomly look at different ones.
So do you want to make a motion for the committee, Diane?
Yeah, so I would like to make a motion to add the ability to do bank check processing, whether that be check payments or ACH, requiring 2 authorized signatures.
No,
To
2
authorize the
approve,
transaction.
2 approvals.
2 approvals.
2 approvals, yeah. In the bank.
Okay, a second? And then we can discuss it further. A second? Rita. Okay, thank you, Rita. All right. Further discussion of this topic?
Yeah, I think we should do it with one region and see how it's working and how we get the approvals and whatnot before we do all 13.
Okay, I'm gonna ask Denise, because Denise and her counterpart was the one that was really driving this. So Denise,
Okay.
are you okay with that?
I'm
As,
not sure.
as our pilot? I know, is she driving?
She
might
said
be.
getting out of the car, so I'm not
Okay.
sure.
All right, because if that's a great idea, we can, we can test this out and make sure that it's all set up correctly. And, if that was the case, I think we should use Denise,
Yeah,
ICR, region.
Do we want to alter the motion that's on the floor to reflect this?
I think we should keep it the way it is.
Okay. And that's just part of the, that's just
I
part of.
mean, it's a
we don't have to
rollout
do
plan,
another
right? So we're gonna start
motion.
with one, and if that
Right.
works, then next week we'll do the second one, and so it's like, if the first one works, I'm not coming back to finance to say, okay, now I got the approval for the other
Right.
12.
Okay.
Because that's what I don't want to happen, if that's okay. Now, who do I need to work with the adjusting the bylaws? Or is that something that Mindy will take care of? Or somebody else?
Blanking on who is
Let's
our parliamentarian right now.
Let's vote on this first.
Okay.
All right. All those in favor? Okay, all right, so the motion carries.
I'll talk to you about the bylaws, Diane.
Okay,
We'll have to see what they say.
okay.
All right, Rabbi and Julia have another meeting at 3:30. Lemore had to go, I have to go. And since we're going to try and do another meeting in just a month, is it okay if the debit and credit cards and Region Torah Fund events get carried over to next month?
Yep, fine. Not a problem.
So our next meeting would be December 4th? Is that,
Julia, you'll check the calendars, the
Yeah,
Rabbi?
Well, right now, the exec meeting is the 12th.
well, right, so it would have to be the 4th.
So could we do the 11th? Like, why does it have to be like, in order to do what I'm doing, it would be better if it was like the day before. Like, is there any harm with that?
The problem with the day before is if there are motions to pass, then they can't be sent out ahead of time to the exec. Because it's just the next day.
Okay, because there again, like Lemar said, December 4th, for me to get results is I have to do a lot more work and,
So what we can do, Janet, if this is okay with you, in the minute we have left, is if there are motions that we need to pass for next month,
Mhm.
we will just send them out by email the week before, and then we can meet the day before.
So the 11th is what you're saying? We're meeting? Right?
That's what I'm saying.
At 1 o'clock. Okay.
So we're gonna approve the motions on the 11th in finance.
No, we're going to approve the motions, any motions by email the week before,
Oh,
by the 4th.
By a poll, like you normally do a
Yeah,
poll.
yeah. If there are motions. And that way we can send them when I send the agenda to the exec, and it's not just one day that they have to look at it.
or the other
could
thing
do
I was
that.
gonna suggest is that I don't report financials on December 4th, but when I do the exec report, I send it to the finance committee the week later. I mean, that's another way to do it,
Let's
so.
try it on the 11th next month before we
Okay,
set it
the
up.
11th, definitely, it's not a problem.
Before we set it up, to be the second Wednesday every month, let's see how that goes, and we can revisit that.
Okay,
Thank you, everyone.
thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll
Okay.
see some of you on Sunday.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Looking forward to
Yep.
it.
Then happy
Safe travels.
Thanksgiving to everyone.
All
Thanksgiving.
right,
Well,
bye-bye.
Thanksgiving.
Good
Bye.
luck with everything, and thank you for the flowers from
You're
women.
welcome. Feel well.
Cheered me up.
Good.
Beautiful. Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.